I have been an ICU nurse for 7 years, recently switched to night shift 6 months ago due to staffing shortages at our hospital. Not by choice, but someone had to take the role. For context, I've lived in my current apartment for 5 years. It's an older building with thick concrete walls that provided good sound insulation. That suited my sleep schedule since I work 7 p.m. 7 a.m. shifts and need to sleep during daylight hours. I've never had issues with noise before, even with previous upstairs neighbors, probably why I renewed my lease so many times to Bahada. 3 months ago, a new tenant moved in above me with what appeared to be a teenage daughter. At first, it seemed fine. I even brought a welcome plant as a neighborly gesture. Might be relevant later, not sure. About 2 weeks after they moved in, I noticed daytime noise. Children crying, running, and stomping from about 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays. I tried to be understanding and bought industrial-strength earplugs and a white noise machine, but the noise made sleep nearly impossible during my rest hours. After a hard night shift with 3 emergency patients, one who coded twice, I got home at 8 a.m. exhausted. As soon as I entered my apartment, I heard loud noises overhead. I could hear children crying and screaming and furniture being moved across the floor. I tried my sleep routine: blackout curtains, white noise machine set to maximum, earplugs, even melatonin. Despite that, I was awakened repeatedly by thumping, a child tantrum, and furniture scraping. After 3 hours without sleep, I was exhausted and frustrated. I decided to address this directly, despite being conflict avoidant. Thanks, therapy, for pointing that out. I changed out of my pajamas, climbed the stairs, and knocked on my neighbor's door. When she opened it a crack, I saw at least 6 toddlers in the background. I realized she was running a daycare up there. I tried to be polite and professional. I explained I work night shifts as a critical care nurse and need to sleep during the day. I asked if she could keep the noise down during certain hours so I could get enough rest to do my job safely. Her response completely surprised me. She immediately went on the defensive, claiming the children were just playing and that I should get used to normal daytime noise if I choose to sleep during daytime hours. When I mentioned that running a daycare might violate our building's lease terms, which I had double-checked the night before, her demeanor changed. "Are you threatening me? These are just friends' kids I'm watching occasionally," she said in a harsh tone. Before I could respond, she added, "Not everyone has a nurse's salary. Some of us have to make ends meet however we can." Then she shut the door. I returned to my apartment, frustrated and still exhausted. May have stress eaten an entire pint of ice cream, not gonna lie. After rechecking my lease, I confirmed that home businesses, especially those involving multiple visitors daily, are strictly prohibited without special permission from management. Running an unlicensed daycare would definitely fall under this category. The thing is, I genuinely don't want to be that neighbor who reports every little thing. We all need to coexist, right? But this isn't about someone's TV being too loud occasionally. This is affecting my ability to function at a job where mistakes can literally cost lives. Just last week, I almost administered the wrong medication dosage because I was so sleep deprived I couldn't focus properly. Thank God my colleague double-checked my work, still having anxiety attacks thinking about what could have happened. I've spent nearly $300 on sleep solutions already. Upgraded earplugs, a better white noise machine, even acoustic panels for my bedroom ceiling, which my lease says I can't install without permission. None of it works against the constant noise above me 5 days a week. My sleep tracker app shows I'm averaging less than 4 hours of broken sleep per day, down from 7 to 8 hours. My supervisor has already commented on my distracted demeanor during rounds, and I'm terrified of making a serious medical error. Patient safety is on the line, and I took an oath to do no harm. I actually love kids. I worked in pediatric ICU for 3 years before transferring to adult critical care. I understand childcare is expensive and running an in-home daycare might be her best financial option. But she chose the worst possible apartment to do this in, directly above a night shift healthcare worker in a building that prohibits home businesses. Yesterday, after another failed attempt at sleep, I sat in my car in the parking lot, sobbing from exhaustion. I'm at my breaking point. My next shift is tomorrow night, and I'm terrified I'll make a mistake that could harm someone because I can't think straight. I've drafted an email to our building manager explaining the situation, but I haven't sent it yet. Part of me feels terrible about potentially affecting this woman's livelihood, especially if she's a single mom just trying to make ends meet. But another part of me knows this is unsustainable and potentially dangerous given my profession. I'll try to respond to comments, but might try to catch some sleep before my shift tonight, assuming the noise takes a lunch break at some point. I know I need to take action for both my well-being and patient safety, but I'm torn about putting another person in a difficult financial position. Any thoughts would be appreciated, as I'm too sleep-deprived to think clearly anymore. Now for the first update. First of all, thank you everyone for all the advice and support on my original post about the unauthorized daycare situation. I finally worked up the courage to take some action, and things have definitely escalated since I last posted. So it's been about a week since I confronted my upstairs neighbor about the noise from her unauthorized daycare. I tried everything to make my apartment sleepable. I bought professional acoustic panels and installed them on my ceiling, used industrial earplugs, turned my white noise machine to maximum, and even tried sleeping in my bathtub. Nothing worked. I got almost no sleep. After 4 days, I did poorly at work. My colleagues noticed when I wasn't at my best. During my third shift that week, I almost administered the wrong medication dosage to a post-surgical patient, but my colleague Anna double-checked and caught it. I still feel sick thinking about it. I spoke with HR about shift changes, but our ICU is understaffed at night, and switching to days requires seniority. 3 nurses are ahead of me, and the hospital's policy won't bend because of staffing shortages. My work performance was suffering, and I felt overwhelmed, so I emailed our building manager, Tom. I tried to be diplomatic, explaining the noise and how it affected my ability to work safely. I mentioned my unproductive conversation with my neighbor, but didn't directly accuse her of violating the lease, though I implied it. Tom responded quickly and said he'd speak with her about the noise. He warned that without evidence of a business, he could only file a noise complaint. He said he'd stop by her apartment the next day. The day after Tom's visit, the noise increased. It sounded like furniture being dragged and children playing loudly for hours. I started recording the noise as evidence. After a 16-hour shift, I got home at 8 a.m. hoping for sleep. I found a note on my door. Some people work days to support their families. Your sleep isn't more important than our livelihood. I was too tired to react, so I took a photo of the note and went upstairs. I saw children's drawings around her door frame labeled Ms. Melissa's Daycare. I photographed the drawings and sent them to Tom, requesting urgent intervention. While waiting for Tom's response, I tried to sleep with my noise-canceling gear. After 2 hours, there was a knock at my door. I got out of bed, expecting Tom, but found Melissa's teenage daughter, Zoe. Zoe apologized. She said they were in debt and the daycare was their main income. She said her mom made noise on purpose in my bedroom after I complained. I told Zoe that my sleep deprivation could endanger patients' lives. I'm responsible for critically ill people who need me to be alert. A mistake could be fatal. Zoe said, "Please don't get us evicted. Mom's scared and we have nowhere else to go." She went back upstairs. That evening, Tom confirmed he'd issue a lease violation notice. If Melissa didn't stop the daycare, it could lead to eviction. It felt like a hollow victory. I couldn't sleep, feeling guilty about making a family homeless versus needing sleep to do my job safely. The next morning, my supervisor, Dr. Rahman, pulled me aside after I nearly dozed off during rounds. He said another mistake or sign of impairment could lead to disciplinary action. Patient safety comes first, he said. I feel stuck. I took an oath to provide safe care, which I can't do while sleep deprived, but I might cause a single mom and her daughter to lose their home. The noise is slightly better today, but my reputation at work is damaged, and tensions with my neighbors are high. I'll keep you updated, but right now I'm trying to find a solution that doesn't end with someone getting hurt. Thank you all again for your support and advice. Now for the second update. Update 2. I thought my last update about the unauthorized daycare situation would be the final one, but here's what's going on now. Link to original post and first update for those who missed it. It's been about 2 weeks since my last update, and things have gotten more complicated. After Tom issued the lease violation notice to Melissa, I thought the noise would stop, but it didn't. The daycare operation continued, though they made some effort to reduce noise above my bedroom. It wasn't enough to let me sleep properly. I was getting maybe 3 or 4 broken hours at best. I checked in with Tom about the violation notice. He told me Melissa had requested a formal exception to run a licensed home daycare. The request was denied because the building's insurance prohibits commercial childcare operations. So she knew she wasn't supposed to be doing this, but tried to get permission anyway. Talking to a couple of neighbors who also found the noise annoying, I learned Melissa's situation was dire. Her husband had left the family with nearly $80,000 in credit card debt. and a second mortgage she didn't know about. One neighbor said Melissa had been crying about possibly filing for bankruptcy. I felt terrible hearing this, but it didn't change my own desperate situation. My health was deteriorating. I lost about 10 pounds in a month from stress and disrupted sleep. I started experiencing microsleeps during my commute, falling asleep for seconds while driving. I nearly rear-ended someone at a stoplight. After that, I knew something had to change. I spent a day researching options and proposed a compromise to Melissa by email. I would help her find licensed commercial space for her daycare and connect her with a nonprofit that helps women entrepreneurs. If she would reduce operating hours to allow me a 6-hour sleep window. I offered to help her navigate the licensing process. I thought it would be mutually beneficial. 3 days passed with no response. The noise continued, though a bit muted. I was surviving on energy drinks and caffeine. I was administering medication to a patient when I realized I had nearly given him triple the prescribed dose of blood pressure medication. I corrected the mistake before any harm occurred. Dr. Rahman had been watching from the doorway. He called me into his office. I broke down. I explained the situation with my apartment and showed him recordings of the noise disrupting my sleep. Dr. Rahman was understanding but firm. Patient safety comes first. He placed me on mandatory leave until my sleep situation is resolved. No patients, no shifts, no pay. I drove home at dawn, devastated about being suspended from the job I love. Pulling into the parking lot, I saw Melissa already receiving children for daycare at 6 a.m., earlier than before. I felt compelled to act. I parked and approached the parents dropping off their children. I introduced myself as the downstairs neighbor and mentioned the noise. Melissa rushed out, but I said I'd been suspended from my nursing job due to sleep deprivation errors. One parent asked Melissa if her daycare was properly licensed. Melissa started yelling that I was trying to destroy a single mother's only means of supporting her family. The parents looked uncomfortable, and I left without saying more. I felt vindicated and terrible. I was desperate. That afternoon, I got an angry text from Melissa's daughter Zoe asking how I could ambush her mother in front of clients. She said they were at risk of losing their apartment, and it would be my fault. I explained I'd lost my income too, and that both my career and patient safety were at risk. Later, the housing authority called. One parent reported Melissa's unlicensed daycare, triggering an official investigation. They asked if I could provide a statement about what I'd observed, which I did, though I felt conflicted. Edit. A lot of you asked if I feel guilty for potentially making them homeless. I do. I tried multiple times to find a compromise before things escalated. I've looked into temporary housing assistance programs I could refer them to if they get evicted, but I also need to consider my livelihood and patient safety. If I make a serious medication error because I'm sleep deprived, someone could die. I'm now stuck in limbo. I'm finally getting some sleep since the daycare operations were reduced during the investigation, but I'm on unpaid leave and feel guilty about making a single mom and her teenage daughter homeless. Tom said management is taking this seriously now that an official report is filed and eviction proceedings seem likely. I keep wondering if there was a better way to handle this. Should I have been more aggressive from the start instead of trying to be understanding? Should I have gone to the authorities immediately instead of using building management first? I don't know anymore. This situation with Melissa gets more complicated, and I'm worried about what happens next for all of us. I'll keep you posted on any new developments as the Housing Authority investigation proceeds. Now for the final update. Final update on the unauthorized daycare situation. Thanks to everyone who offered advice and support over the past few weeks. About 3 weeks have passed since my last update, and we have a resolution. Within 48 hours of the report, an inspector confirmed Melissa was running an unlicensed daycare in an apartment building not zoned for childcare. The inspector issued Melissa a cease and desist order. She had to stop all daycare operations until she obtained a license, which wasn't possible in our building due to zoning. The parents were given a list of licensed facilities, and the noise stopped. After 3 days without interruption, I got enough sleep and started feeling normal again. Tom said management was pursuing eviction against Melissa for multiple lease violations. She'd been late on rent twice and had other minor violations. They gave her 30 days to vacate. I needed sleep, I had patient safety to consider, and I tried to work things out. Still, knowing I contributed to a single mom and her daughter facing homelessness weighed on me. Zoe texted, "We have nowhere to go. Mom's been calling every apartment in our price range and no one will take us without good rental history. This is all because you couldn't just buy better earplugs." I understood she was scared and needed someone to blame. During my suspension, I researched resources. I found a community program to help single mothers with business licensing, affordable childcare space, and emergency housing assistance. They had provisions for women facing financial abuse, which fit Melissa's situation based on her ex leaving her with hidden debt. After many drafts of what to say, I decided to speak with Melissa directly. I printed the resource information, notes on applications, and wrote a rough script. Then I walked upstairs to her apartment on Tuesday afternoon. I stood outside her door for about 5 minutes before knocking. After a long pause, Melissa opened the door. The apartment looked half empty. She looked exhausted. When she recognized me, her expression hardened, but she didn't close the door. I said I had resources to help and held out the folder. Melissa laughed and said, "Now you want to help after destroying everything?" I stayed calm and said I understood her anger but needed her to know that sleep deprivation put my livelihood and patience at risk. I told her I was on unpaid suspension and hadn't wanted this to go as far as eviction. Zoe emerged from her bedroom. She asked to see the resources. I handed her the folder. Melissa sighed and invited me in. We sat at their kitchen table and went through the materials. Melissa opened up about her situation. Her ex-husband had a gambling addiction, took their savings, and disappeared. She had no college education, and childcare was the only work she was qualified for. She had been trying to save for a license when I complained. I explained my work in ICU nursing and how sleep deprivation could harm patients. I said I'd tried for months to find a solution without involving management. We reached a kind of understanding. Melissa acknowledged she should have worked with me from the beginning instead of increasing the noise. I admitted I could have been more understanding of her circumstances before contacting management. Over the next 2 weeks, I helped Melissa apply for emergency housing assistance and navigate the licensing process for childcare. I offered to write a reference explaining our conflict was situational. The housing assistance program helped Melissa and Zoe secure a 2-bedroom unit in a building zoned for childcare. Rent was subsidized for 6 months, giving Melissa time to establish her licensed business. Dr. Rahman cleared me to return to work after confirming my sleep was regular. On my first shift back, coworkers joked about my conflict with the daycare. Melissa and Zoe moved out last weekend. I saw them loading their belongings into a moving truck. Zoe saw me at my window and waved. I waved back. Yesterday, Zoe texted a photo of their new apartment. Mom's daycare license application is being processed. Thanks for the help. No forgiveness offered, but no anger either. I returned to my full nursing schedule this week. The apartment above mine is empty while they renovate it. Edit. Many asked if I still feel guilty. The answer is complicated. I don't regret advocating for patient safety, but I wish I'd found the resources for Melissa sooner. I've learned I have to balance my needs and others. The situation has ended. Melissa and I can move forward, and no one ended up homeless. Thank you to everyone who offered support and advice.